YouTube and Rumble family, what's happening? What's good? Yo, let's kick it for a second. So what you see right there is submarine emergency blow. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna play it for y'all, and then I'll explain afterwards. Let's kick it. Boom. Emergency blow. All right. Submarine emergency blow, submarine doing that awesome thing. Those things are just amazing and fantastic just to be aboard a ship while that's happening, or rather aboard the boat while that's happening. Now, the way these things happen is you'd be in a place called control. While you're in control, you hit these two things called chicken switches. As soon as you hit the chicken switches, basically they fill the ballast tanks up full of air, and then the boat, it turns into like a dang basketball in the freaking swimming pool, right? And then it just rockets up to the surface. Now, I'm gonna show you guys something else. A Chinese submarine 361, I think this happened around, 2003-ish. Yeah, April 2, look at that. April 2003. April, it just seems like militaries around the world during April time frame have bad luck. April 2001, we crashed an EP-3 in Hainan Island on China, right? It crash landed there, and then, all kinds of craziness happened, but then we got our sailors back, thank God. But this happened in April 2003 to the Chinese military. Now, I'm not going to be in complete order, but they lost their whole crew, basically. Lost the whole crew. It was a casualty. It sucked for the Chinese Navy. Let's move on. USS Thresher. This is another casualty that occurred in 1958. Nope, excuse me, not 1958, 1963. Look at when it happened. April 1963, the whole crew died. If I'm not mistaken, these guys, I think they tried to do the emergency blow maneuver again. Something happened to their Parker valves in the back. They were different at that time. It basically flash froze those set of valves, and then ultimately what happened, the submarine, if I'm not mistaken, it happened with this submarine. It just didn't make the emergency blow. They ended up sinking in I think near the North Atlantic, if I'm not mistaken, something like that. Anyway, I'll put this in the description box, and then you guys can check it out for yourself, right? The casualty. Either way, this is what happened. And submarines, nuclear submarines, had been around at that time, I think, the 50s, right? The Nautilus, it started out with the Nautilus, and then it continued on. But submarine casualties in the militaries are prevalent. This is something common. Let's move on. Please excuse me, I made a mistake. It's not really common, but when it happens, it's not too much of a shock, because these things are likely to occur if, stuff happens. But check this out. The Kursk submarine disaster. This one I remember because I was, in training, getting ready to go to dive school. I was a mud puppet sim in Norfolk, right? I was attached to a dive locker at the time, getting ready to go to dive school, like I said. As soon as this disaster happened, the Navy went ahead and pitched their best foot forward and offered help to the Russians. The Russians declined. Those men died in the Barents Sea, at the bottom of the Barents Sea. Apparently, something had happened with one of the torpedoes where they went off. Either way, this is another casualty. That happened in the 2000s, right? 2000, actually. Let's move on. Here's this one. This is the more recent one, right? 2017, November-ish time frame. The ARA San Juan, the ARA San Juan, another submarine, disappeared off the coast of Argentina. These guys were conducting an exercise. I'll never forget when this happened, because I had just gotten off submarine duty of July that year. And then, 4 months later, this happens. You know what I'm saying? So I left Hawaii. 4 months later, this happens, and it's crazy, because I'm like, wow, just another set of my brothers that goes down, and they just never come back up. This is wild. It's crazy, but this is the reality of when you do submarine duty sometimes, right? You don't want it to befall you or anyone, but these things happen. Let's move on. Lastly, the USS Scorpion. This happened, I think, in the 60s as well. Yeah, right. Okay. So, 68, basically the whole crew died, right? Scorpion, same thing happened, right? The whole crew died. You know, another submarine casualty for the U.S. Navy. These things are tough to deal with, but they're a reality, right? So the best thing you could do is have a very well trained crew. Basic damage control. Really, if your crew is basic DC qualified, you're ahead of the curve, right? And no matter who it is, if they're guys that get on board like me and conduct specific jobs, you still want these guys to know what it is they need to do in case a casualty befalls the ship. You know what I'm saying? So basic damage control is essential. And it's also essential to getting your dolphins. Your submarine enlisted qualification. It's called your fish. We call them your fish. And it's a good time when you get them. It's a very honorable thing to do. And it makes you part of a brotherhood. And I really enjoyed getting my fish as well as my shipmates that got their fish. Now, I'm not here to talk about fish or anything like that. What I'm showing you guys is that being on submarines is a tough type of duty, right? And this is a multi-billion-dollar piece of equipment that the Navy uses, but it's run by a bunch of guys from high school all the way up, right? Guys from high school to guys that wind up getting their doctorates sometimes, right? And then guys that are as young as high school age kids, right? 18 and up. And then your most senior guy, the skipper, right? Or the Commodore, depending on who's on board. Either way, this is a multi-million-dollar piece of equipment. They don't just take anybody and throw them on submarines, even though sometimes it may seem like they do, they don't, right? You have to be very well trained, very well qualified. U.S. Navy submarines tend to be nuclear, right, in propulsion. So with a nuclear submarine, some of the best trained and the smartest guys in America help propel this boat, right? So I'm saying all that so I could show you some of this. Let's move on. All right, right here is the ISS, right? We all know what it is. It's the International Space Station. There it is, right? Fully deployed. They put it all together, right? And look at how long it's been around since. It's been around since 1998. A lot of what I just showed you was between 2000, 2003, 1990, 2017. There was another incident that happened like a year ago with all those billionaires on that submersible, right? That was a miniature submarine. And that had an accident. Not to mention the accident that happened in port with the Indian Navy and their submarine, right? So these things are, although they're not common, these things are happening. And they're happening within the last 20 years on multiple platforms, but the same type of platform, right? The submarine. Now I'm showing you the ISS, and it's been around for almost 30 years now. And I'm showing you the ISS because the type of equipment that it is, the type of environment that it functions at, and the type of people that are supposed to be on this ISS performing their duties. Now let me show you something a little bit more. All right, here we are talking about the Puka on the ISS. Check this out.
Okay.
So we call it a shutter, and it protects the windows from micrometeorites.
Okay.
The shutters are closed, the windows are protected, and also thermally insulates the windows from the radiation environment of space.
So can you shut these things from the outside?
No, you can open and close it from the inside.
Oh, okay, wait. On the inside, you're throwing a lever or something.
Yeah, you're turning a knob.
And it's
Liar.
Opens.
On the outside.
On the outside.
How do you do that and maintain a pressure seal between them?
O-ring type seals
No, you don't.
with a rotating check. All our hatch seals are O-ring type seals.
Yeah, but how... my
It's
brain's...
up here. Let's go inside. We can see it.
Okay.
Watch
All
your
right.
head.
All right. Oh, oops, thunk.
So you have a whole series of O-rings in here, and a shaft that you rotate.
So, I mean, like on the space station, how many of these would you have?
7, because we have 7 windows.
What happens if you get a leak on that?
Then you have a leak.
You just have a leak.
So you have a leak. You just have a leak. That is the biggest. You know what? I'm doing my best to not cuss. All right. That guy's full of it. Okay. You don't just have a leak. So if you have a leak, you do something. If you had a leak, Now, I'll tell you what happens if you have a quote-unquote rapid decompression, right? That's basically called rapid decompression on an airplane. If you have rapid decompression, you have emergency procedures that you have to follow. This guy would have to follow emergency procedures automatically. We've had it drilled in our mind on an airplane what you do. Basically, on a submarine, if there's a leak, you're damn near screwed. I'm telling you, you are damn near screwed. Everybody's going to be doing what they need to do, and what you saw was that emergency blow. Chances are, depending on how bad it is and depending on where you are, there's a good chance that you may have the emergency blow, because you don't want to be under pressure taking on water. That's the last thing you want to have to deal with being on a submarine. Let's move on. Let me show you something else. So I promise this is going to be the last thing that you guys get to see, but check it out. This is a casualty that I'm talking about. This is a casualty going on the ISS. Now check this out. Watch this.
Stop.
It sounds like a plot line from a deep space movie, but the mystery is real and was a matter of life and death. A tiny hole discovered in a Russian capsule that docks to the International Space Station.
To the right from you.
4 months ago, during orbit, the Russian Space Agency noticed the Soyuz capsule was losing cabin pressure. Cosmonauts plugged the hole with epoxy and gauze.
Не складывалась ситуация на станции.
At first, scientists suspected the hole was caused by a meat.
All right, okay. Epoxy and gauze. Epoxy and gauze. So basically, they just threw some doggone... They threw some Bondo and some bandages together just so they could cover up this hole. That's what they're saying. Epoxy and gauze. Meanwhile, you have this machine. You have this platform flying around the Earth, right? Tumbling around the Earth, so we're told, at 17,500 miles an hour. Miles, over 200 miles above the Earth at blistering speeds, right? At that fast. Plus, not to mention, remember, up there it's supposed to be what? Zero vacuum, right? So how do you maintain some kind of pressure with that tiny hole? There's no rapid decompression. That's supposed to be some form of rapid decompression. Actually, that's supposed to have been some kind of explosive decompression, because with a tiny hole like that and the atmosphere with the way it is out there, your whole ISS should have been destroyed. That makes zero sense. That makes zero sense. But they're claiming that they have a drill bit sized hole in that ISS nonsense thing that they're talking about. But you see, this is why they're lying. This is why it's not possible for the claims that they're making, saying that this is here and that's there and this is doing that, that's doing this. Because look at that guy, David Pettit. You just saw him on Smarter Every Day. He had no clue how to fix a casualty if it were to fall in his lap. He has no idea what he needs to do. There would be, I mean, with the amount of money that we're paying NASA to maintain these machines in space like they claim, right? You would have the best, the brightest, the most qualified individuals on that platform running it, making sure that they're squeezing every penny out of our taxpayer dollars to ensure that every man, woman comes down in one piece, gets back to Earth in one piece. Instead of, well, you just get a leak, I guess. I don't know. Very good engineering. Lies. Lies, lies, more lies. If you think I'm crazy, if you think I'm stupid, please just tell me where I'm wrong. I've just given you a couple of comparisons in the last 20 years. The last 20 years. The ISS is almost 30 years old. No casualties. No deaths. No deaths. This thing hasn't been destroyed. Meanwhile, it's got a drill bit sized hole in it. I just gave you a bunch of different casualties that went down with all these submarines. Yet, this thing's flying around with a hole in it and they cover it up with epoxy. Anyway, YouTube family and Rumble, I wish you guys nothing but the best. Health, wealth, love, joy, prosperity. Check this thing out. Check me out. Tell me where I'm wrong. Steer me right. But most of all, wisdom. I love y'all. I'm out. Peace.